Mehraboon Irani is joining us now to take some questions. Mehraboon, good to have you with us here. Thank you very much. Your thoughts, Mehraboon, on how you're seeing things with this move, which is continuing. I mean, we are just what 2-3% away from new highs, or at least reclaiming the older highs first. Your thoughts?
I think if I'm allowed to borrow a phrase which Anuj just used a few minutes ago, which I overheard, I think the entire market is still in a complete mood of denial. I think before you sleep for the night, you get at least 3 to 4 social messages being circulated, talking of virtually everything negative. Let's be very honest, Prashant. I think you also cover global markets quite well for the channel. I think we all talk of global factors being very negative, nothing to suggest things will improve soon. We talk of US dollar index, we talk of inflation, we talk of shortages, we talk of a possible recession in the US, which I believe will be a soft landing rather than a full-fledged recession, but we know problems are there. But in the midst of all this, what has happened is foreign money has started coming back to India. Also relatively, the gap between India right now in terms of positives vis-a-vis the rest of the world, I would say, has widened considerably. So why not look at India favorably? This is not to state that I'm denying that factors in front of us are negative. Factors are certainly negative. But people who have looked at only those are virtually feeling left out right now. So I continue to reiterate what I have been mentioning for the last few weeks or the last few shows wherever I have come. I think we need to continue to wear the blue cap of a trader and not bother too much about the red cap which an investor wears. Watch the S&P, Nasdaq, Nifty in the past. We were watching that. Now we are watching the futures and we are continuing to trade. So it's becoming very difficult to predict on a day-to-day basis what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody knows right now. So I state the same thing. The bottom-up approach is very important. Go ahead and buy stocks which valuation-wise you feel comfortable. You feel that going ahead the earnings will grow for them, and therefore certainly the upside should be much more than a possible downside, even if the market corrects or collapses for any other reason. So I think a bottom-up approach is very important, which investors need to learn. It's very easy to get attracted to stocks which have faltered, but don't forget there are quite a few stocks, despite faltering, are still very expensive. But you do a selection process, do the bottom-up approach, buy into select stocks, and pay the momentum right now like a good trader would do.
Okay, hi Mehraboon, noted that. Mehraboon, I wanted to view on a couple of these pharma names, Ipca Laboratories or Strides. Both of them have perked up in the last few minutes. Any view on these, or do you have a different preference in the pharma pack?
I think last 2 years I have been 100% negative as far as pharma stock goes, barring maybe a couple of stocks like a JB Chemicals or a Kaplan Point Labs. But let me accept and admit one thing. I think the levels at which they are, I think the downside from here for most of them now could be limited and the upside could be there. So from a trading angle, I think people can go ahead and buy into pharma stocks because they look relatively attractive than where they were maybe a year ago. I think don't forget the stock has completely underperformed the market. But I would not look at it because the point is I have been going on stating the structure of the pharma industry, Indian pharma industry, especially companies which are having exposure to Europe and to the US, I think has completely got shattered. And to believe the managements, which I never do, especially pharma managements, who keep on saying this is a passing phase, the answer is not. It's going to take quite some time. The values at the prices at which they were selling have come down considerably. To expect anything major to happen for any of them, I think would be foolhardy. I think certainly, yes, there could be upside in some stocks. The couple of stocks which you mentioned included in them, but that would be purely from a trading angle. So if you feel you're fleet-footed, sharp enough, smart enough to exit at the right time, you can go ahead and buy into them. From a fundamental angle, longer-term angle, I think despite the fact that valuations have come down quite sharply for most of them, not in a hurry to recommend any pharma stock, barring maybe a Kaplan Point Laboratories, which I've been tracking for the last over 10 years.
Mehraboon, afternoon. You would have heard Nimish. Out of these three, would you pick any? If not, what would be your own, sort of pick in the space?
I would say IndusInd Bank is at least 2 to 3 lines ahead of Bandhan Bank, and I would not consider the third name because I don't track it. But I think as far as Bandhan Bank goes, since you mentioned about Bandhan Bank and the stock having gone up right now, Anuj, I would just like to state one thing, that the phase which Bandhan Bank faced in the quarter 4 of FY22, vis-a-vis the first quarter, I think there has been a hell of a change. I think delinquencies improved because of forward flow from restructured pool. There were regulations changed, Assam floods happened, so the complete book slightly got a little bit topsy-turvy for Bandhan Bank. As a result of it, the quarterly one of FY23 was not very good and the stock came off very sharply. At the present level, certainly I believe that Bandhan Bank has some distance to go from the present price, and I would certainly possibly feel that if somebody wants to buy, I am not going to stop him. In fact, I will say it's not a bad decision at all to go and buy into the stock, because the stock has come off very sharply from much higher levels. But between the two, if you ask me, IndusInd Bank, I would say IndusInd Bank numbers for the last quarter were brilliant, and I do believe the stock has at least another 10% to go from your clear disclosure. I'm holding IndusInd Bank stock. I think at the present price, between the two, if you ask me to select, I would say maybe from a trade angle, Bandhan Bank could outperform IndusInd Bank, but the level of comfort is certainly much higher for IndusInd Bank.
I mean, even names like in the microfinance space, if the theme is microfinance, all kinds of players, Saturn, for example, Saturn Credit Care, that was from 100 at the beginning of this month. The end of last month was at 100, at 140 now. So that's a cool 40% just this month. And that's done pretty well. Over a longer period of time, none of these stocks really have gone anywhere. Bandhan, of course, is the leader, which is still, I mean, a huge underperformer relative to even banking, financial services, all. Forget about the rest of the market, of course, which is done very well. Mehraboon, any other sort of thematic ideas, spaces that you're focused on, that you're working on, you think there is still a lot of value?
I think capital goods sector, I think I have been quite positive for quite some time. The problem right now is the valuations, if you ask me. For the present level, is the money to be made? Answer is yes, but if there is a pullback, I would say the conviction would be still higher. I think maybe a name like maybe an ABB, if you take it a KSP Pumps, you take a Foseco India, which is going at a valuation of less than 30. The names are plenty. But from a theme angle, I think I continue to state what I've been stating for quite some months now, is the cement sector. I believe the cement sector, there could be a bottoming out quarter, the quarter D2, which is going to come for the September quarter, the numbers which you will see with the bottoming out quarter. Cement prices have been subdued over the last 1.5, 2 months, especially in other regions barring South India and East India, where the prices moved up a little bit. But we are seeing a lot of changes happening in the sector, with Adani taking over Holcim's stake as far as Ambuja Cement and ACC goes. Adani have clearly stated the intent is to be 100 million ton per annum capacity unit. Now whether it's Ambuja, ACC combined, because both have a capacity of around 32 million tons. If you look at the valuation gap between, say, an Ambuja vis-a-vis an Ultratech, which has a capacity of over 110 million tons, I think the valuation gap is very, very high, mainly because of the reason Ultratech is Ultratech. Across the country, super balance sheet, super geographical presence, network is brilliant. But if you look at Ambuja right now, I think the cost per ton is going to come down very sharply for Ambuja. They will not have to pay the royalty payment to Holcim. They will be getting the fly ash and maybe imported coal also at a much lower level. Don't forget, Ambuja has lost market share over the last 1.5 months because Holcim never did too many things. They were quite passive as an owner. And we all know that Adanis are going to be aggressive as far as Ambuja goes. So I personally believe the valuation gap is going to come down, and that itself is the biggest trigger for the Ambuja stock. Now somebody may argue that the stock has gone up from 370 to the present 480. Should I still buy into it? If you are an investor, I personally believe you should certainly go and buy into it. I see the valuations or the re-rating as far as Ambuja happens should happen over the next 2 to 3 weeks, with analysts coming out with buy report. This is my personal feeling, because there could be an analyst meet coming soon. Management will spell out ideas. We are going to expand this, we are going to expand it, and suddenly you will say, oh, this is a company which is going to go the Ultratech way. So why there should be a big valuation gap? Also, let's not forget the gap in the EBITDA per ton of Ambuja and ACC vis-a-vis Ultratech also should narrow down considerably. So I think these are the factors in favor of Ambuja and ACC. I think this should be the leaders as far as stocks goes in the cement pack. And the cement pack, entire cement pack, even otherwise, I'm quite positive, and I've always been recommending a stock like Dalmia Bharat. So right now, if you ask me, my selection would be Ambuja at number 1 and ACC at number 2, followed by a Dalmia. As far as Ultratech goes, I've always stated it's like a core stock. I'm not saying one should sell off Ultratech, but I would prefer at the present levels the 3 other names which I mentioned.
Yeah, all right, got that on the cement names. Mehraboon, you track the Bajaj names, the frontline names, but Maharashtra Scooters and Bajaj Holdings, they have holdings in these large names, and you pull up a last 1 month chart. My director will just get that up for you. These stocks have done very, very well. In fact, in today's trading session itself, Maharashtra Scooters is flying away. I think we should pull up a 1 month chart actually of both these two stocks. Mehraboon, any view on these holding companies? It seems suddenly both these two stocks, they're up close to 25% in the last 1 month. So I ask.
Nigel, let's be very honest. I think holding companies is the way you value it. Do you value it at 40% discount, 20% discount, 50% discount? I think it's anybody's call. And allow me to state that I have not seen too many holding companies making consistent money for investors. I have not seen it. But at the end of it all, as far as Bajaj Holdings and Maharashtra Scooter goes, both of which I track, I definitely see a lot of value in them despite the fact that they have gone up. The point is the companies whose shares they are holding in the holding company structure, I think those companies themselves are doing well and should do well going ahead. So if I was an investor holding these stocks, I would say I would continue to hold on. As far as valuations go, as I mentioned earlier, Nigel, you may give it a 30% discount or 40% discount on the core value of their holdings. Somebody may argue, why should I give it 30 or 40% also? Because these companies are not going to go ahead and sell off their holdings and distribute it to shareholders. That doesn't happen. That seldom happens. So I would say that I'm very comfortable because it's Bajaj. So if you ask me specifically, Bajaj Holdings and Maharashtra Scooters vis-a-vis holding companies of other groups, I would certainly prefer the name Bajaj. And I would say, yes, there is too much of value into both these names which you mentioned.